In order to solve this problem, we're going to need to know how to factor the sum or difference of two cubes. And in this case, it's going to be the difference of two cubes. So we're going to have 2x to the fourth if we subtract 1024x from both sides. This is the equation that we'll have. Now, the first thing we want to do is factor out anything that both terms have in common. They're both even, so we can factor out a 2, and they both contain an x, so we can factor that out. What we'll have left is x cubed minus 512. And that part is the difference of two cubes. 512 is 8 to the third power. So we have 2x, and the way this factors is we have x minus 8. We take the cube root of both of those terms. Now, if we're looking at our factoring the difference of two cubes formula, in our case, we have x cubed minus, not that I drew that really well, minus 8 cubed. So when we factor that, we get x minus 8 times x squared plus 8x plus 64. So I'm using x as our A and 8 as the B to get those numbers. So that's how we get this factored. Now, what we're going to do is take each of our terms and set those equal to 0, and we're going to solve. So 2x equals 0 will give us x equals 0 for one of our solutions. X minus 8 equals 0. If you add 8 to both sides, that gives us 8 for another solution. Now this last part, we're going to have to take and either complete the square or use our quadratic formula to solve it because it doesn't factor. So this is the part where it seems that you had a little difficulty because you had the first two factors set equal to 0 and solved because they're your answers which match the correct answers, but the other answers are the ones that are different. So the approach I'm going to take is completing the square. It just is easier for me. So we'll get the x squared plus 8x on one side of the equation, and then we'll have negative 64 on the other. So we want to see what we want to add in here, what we're going to add to make this a perfect square. And the way that we do that is we take our middle term there, the coefficient of x, we divide it by 2, and we square that. So what that gives us is 4 squared. Now we don't want to forget that the 8 divided by 2 was the 4 because that's going to come in handy in just a minute. And that's going to give us 16 that we're going to add to both sides. So add 16 to both sides of your equation. And on this side you'll have a perfect square. And on this side we'll have a negative 48 over here, and on this side, this is where the 4 comes in handy because this is x plus 4 quantity squared. That term tells us what to put in here. Now we're ready to take the square root of both sides. When we do that, we have x plus 4 equals square root of negative 48. Well, I don't like the negative underneath there. I'm going to factor that completely. I'm going to rewrite that as square root of negative 1. So it reminds me to take out the I, because square root of negative 1 is just I. And I'm going to rewrite square root of 48 into factors so that I have a perfect square. And that's going to give me 16 times 3. So x plus 4 is equal to all that. So if I rewrite this, square root of 16 is 4, square root of negative 1 is I, and then we have that square root of 3 that we really can't do anything with.
Jacob, it's weeping. Jacob, it's
yes,
weeping.
And that's plus or minus. So all we have left is to subtract 4 from both sides.
Yeah, 4.
And our answer is going to be negative 4 plus 4i square roots of 3 and negative 4 minus 4i square roots of 3.
I'll be
And I have a little helper, so hopefully he won't distract you too much.